Today Canon is bringing us 2 new cameras and 2 new lenses, and in this video we're going to be focusing on the brand new Canon EOS R8. Now, it's not just the R8 that Canon are bringing us today. We're also seeing another new camera, the R50, which is an APS-C size sensor in there. We've also got 2 new lenses. We've got an RF 24-50, which will be the kit lens with this, and we're also seeing an RFS 55-210, which will be for RFS. So that will fit more nicely on the R50. Now, if you want to find out more about the R50, we're not really covering it in this video, but we have done a whole separate video where James went to the Peak District and apparently got really muddy, so that might be worth checking out. The link is in the description, take a look. But for now, let me tell you all about the R8. Inside the R8, we've got a full frame 24.2 megapixel sensor, pretty much the same as we see in the R6 Mark II. It can shoot from 100 to 102,400 ISO and has dual pixel CMOS AF too. It doesn't have IBIS, but as a lot of the RF lenses do, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. If you want to shoot some video, it can record 4K 60p oversampled from 6K, 1080p at 180 frames per second if you want some slow motion, and if you're looking for the best dynamic range possible, it does have C-Log 3. Now today, you don't just need to listen to me bang on about this new camera. We're with incredible photographer Ian Hippolyte, and he's going to be using the R8 and giving us his first impressions as a professional fashion photographer.
So I've got the R8 here with me now. We've got the light set up, we've got the model set up. We're in this really cool location. This is really my first try with it. I only got it a few days ago, so I haven't really played with it as yet. So this is going to be my first impressions. So we're going to start shooting and just see what happens. So I'm just testing the light at the moment. I am using flash and trying to blend it with the natural light. So I'm just trying to get it to look quite natural because I don't want it to look like flash necessarily. So I'm going to shoot at quite a slow shutter speed to try and get as much ambient light as possible. And then just add a little pop of flash just to add some more interesting like contrast and shadows on the skin as well. So we've got the lighting pretty much figured out. I'm shooting at 1/50th of a second, which is quite slow, but that's because I want to let in as much ambient light as possible. And then I'm shooting at f4.5. I want to sort of get some detail in the background. I don't really want it to be shallow depth of field. And then I'm also at ISO 1600. So yeah, that's what we're working with at the moment. The lens I'm shooting with is the 24-70, and this is my go-to lens pretty much for for most things when it comes to fashion photography. I love the fact that I'm able to get wide shots at the wider end, 24, but also come in and get some portraits at 70 as well. So it just gives me a lot of versatility, and it means I don't have to carry loads of lenses, especially when we're working on a location like this. Nice. So in terms of the styling today, obviously we've got this yellow dress. It's very flowy, like a tulle dress, which typically is not what I would usually shoot. So I decided to style it with these black kind of chunky boots, just to give it more of like an edgy feel and to fit more with the environment we're in, because it's quite distressed and there's a lot of concrete and hard textures. So I wanted to sort of play off that and maybe like add a bit of contrast between the flowy dress and then like the more edgy boots and the styling. In terms of posing and movement, we're just going to go for something a bit more dramatic, just to add a bit more of an edginess to the whole shoot. Ooh, I actually prefer the lighting from the side. I feel like it just creates a lot more shadow on the right side of her face, so I'm going to continue shooting from this angle. So So I've shot these quite wide, but the resolution's quite high, so I can easily like crop in and zoom in a little bit if we wanted to get that a bit closer, which gives us some good flexibility, I think. So we've moved locations now, and I want to capture a bit more movement. So we're going to capture this really cool shot of Ellie, our model, sort of running towards the door. And this camera actually has continuous shutter, and it goes up to 40 frames per second. And that's going to allow me to shoot really fast, so I can capture the exact right moment. So we've got some really good shots so far, but I think it's missing a little bit of atmosphere. So we're going to introduce some smoke to these shots. And I just want it to be really atmospheric and sort of just add a bit of haze and a bit of interest to the shot and just give it a bit more energy, really. So I think we're going to probably have it maybe on the right side of the frame, and hopefully it will just fill it in and give it a bit more mood. So we've lost a little bit of the natural light coming in. We had some nice sunlight coming through the windows. So we've had to switch things up a little bit. We've introduced a reflector just to bounce some light back onto the model's face. And I've also got a light over here just with a CTO, color temperature orange gel, to give it a nice warm light as if it is the sunlight, basically, to mimic sunlight. So we're going to take some portraits here and see how it comes out. Head up a little bit for me. Nice. Okay, so we're onto a different setup now. We've got a new model, and we're going for a different location within this chapel itself. So we've got this sort of stage area. We've got the model standing on the stage, and I've gone for some additional lighting because it's gotten a little bit dark in here. But I am shooting at 1/40th of a second, ISO 800, so I've pushed it up a little bit. But this has really good ISO performance in low light, so hopefully it works for me. So yeah, we're going to play around and test things out and see how it goes. So we're going to start with some sort of wide shots so we can get the full sort of frame of this. I don't know what this is. Is this some sort of like altar or something? We're going to try and get the full frame of that. So I'm going to shoot quite wide, probably around 35 millimeters. So I'm just trying to capture this whole frame, and then we'll probably move in and do some closer shots as well. Also, we're just running out of battery, so I'm going to change it. We've been shooting for about 3 hours now, and I've done nearly 800 photos, so that's pretty good. This is the LPE17 battery, not the LPE6. So I think it has a slightly smaller sort of battery life, but I'm going to change it now. And yeah, we'll get back to shooting. It's still a little bit dark, so I'm going to push the ISO up to 1000 and see what that looks like. Brilliant. Yeah, I like looking towards the light. That's quite nice. Nice. Could you maybe like just give me a bit of a lean forward, a bit of shoulder? So the AI autofocus is really helping because it's quite a wide shot, so it means it's focusing on her eye, and I don't need to worry about the focus at all, so that's really good. I'm happy with the lighting, happy with how it's looking. We're just going to play around with a few different poses and just see what we can get, really. I'm really enjoying this electronic viewfinder because I can see, I have a pretty good idea of what the photo is actually going to look like before I take it, so that's really good. So we've got the model on the floor now, but I really want to go for like a high angle shot to add a bit more drama. So I've got this step ladder here. I'm just going to maybe go up 2 steps. I don't think I need all 3, but just like this. Yeah, it just gives me a bit of height and it just adds a bit more drama to the shot. So I turned my shutter speed all the way down to 1/8 of a second because it's getting really dark in here and I need to try and let in as much natural light as possible. But it's not an issue in terms of, like shake, because I've got IS in this lens, but also because I'm shooting with flash. So the flash kind of freezes the motion. Nice. That looks really good. And then if you can look towards the light for me. Nice. I think the energy is just like, the energy is great. It's just like given very much, I don't really care, like, yeah. Right, so the shoot is done. Using the Canon R8, I really enjoyed using this. What stood out to me is that it's really small, it's lightweight, but it's still full frame, which I think is really impressive for a camera of this size. I enjoyed using the autofocus, it was amazing. The electronic viewfinder was really great as well, like really clear, good quality. I was getting some really good, like, crisp photos because the resolution's really good as well. So one thing that really stood out to me was the AI AF. It just made everything so much easier because I didn't have to like think about whether the shot was in focus. I could just focus on framing my shot and composition and just shoot away, and I could see that it was really focusing on the model's eyes. So it just made sure that everything was sharp. I mean, I've had a look through and they seem quite sharp to me. I'm gonna have a look when I get home and make sure, but so far it's looking really good. Things that maybe weren't so great is the fact that it's only got one card slot. The fact that it only has one card slot is a little bit of a downside because usually I'd use 2 cards for a shoot like this, or I'd usually want to have a backup in case something goes wrong. And the only other thing that stood out to me as a slightly negative was that the battery was not as big as some other batteries. But it still performed quite well. As you saw, like I got like 800 shots and we were shooting for like 3 hours. So that's pretty decent. And I've got other batteries on charge as well. So it wasn't too bad. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a good piece of kit. So we're gonna get out of here because it is freezing, but I really enjoyed this shoot today. And if you wanna see some of the photos, make sure you check out the links in the description. I've been Ian Hippolyte. Thank you for watching.